So I believe that it's going to take maybe 15 to 20 years for the divide to start closing again. President Trump will not be able to do it, and the person who comes after him may not be able to do it as well. It's growing every day. The left doesn't listen to the right doesn't listen to the left. And influencers and journalists, you have to pick a side. I remember this lady from Turkey who wrote an opinion and her green card was cancelled. And I'm like, okay, where about the First Amendment? And so I want to see people as people. I don't want to see people as black and white and brown and Asian. When you understand that, you become kind towards yourself first, and you become kind towards people. And so you don't see people as left and right, and as immigrant, as local, as the criminals. They are blacks, they are whites, they are Asian, they are Middle East folks. And you begin to realize that people are people. Human nature is the same.
Hey, let's welcome Simon Ateba, Chief White House Correspondent and founder of the Daily Letter, with over 600,000 followers on X. Welcome to the show, sir, and good to see you.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here, and I know we planned to do this a few weeks earlier, but I'm glad that we finally got together to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how did you become who you are today as an immigrant coming to the US from overseas? What was your story, and how did you manage to do that? Today, I want to tell you about a book I'm reading. It's written by 25 veterans of the US Armed Forces, all graduates of the Masters of Business for Veterans program at the University of Southern California. The book is called Veteran Stories of Transition and Transformation. It collects the personal stories of veterans written in their own words. Pick it up for yourself or a veteran you love. Check out the link in the description for 10% off.
Yeah, so I think because I understood what all people really like, right? Like, usually when things happen in the US or in DC, maybe someone is hurt or killed, then, they say migrant crime. But, it's just crime, or black crime, or white crime, or Asian crime, or brown crime. And so I understood that people are the same. People have the same urges, they have the same desires, they like the same things. They want to take care of their families, they want to be happy, they want to be loved, they want to be appreciated. And so I became a bit known in the US by just asking questions at the White House, asking questions at the World Bank, asking questions at the WHO or the IMF. And I did, so I just took what I've been doing my entire life and did the same thing on social media. I quickly realized that people, like dumping information on people. There's a breaking news, this thing happened in DC, and people like, okay, so what? And I began to ask people questions. And what do you make of this? What's your opinion on this? What do you think about this? And I began to have a lot of people responding. And when I began to reach 300 million views per month during the presidential election, I became almost like a danger. And my account was limited. I lost a lot of followers. I was having almost 700,000 followers on X, and I would have had like 1 million followers now. But then they made it almost impossible for my post to be seen. And so I decided to do something else, and I began to code, and I'm launching the Daily Letter very soon, this week in fact. And so when you ask me, how did I become who I am? I just became who I am by asking questions. Most people say so much, but they don't really listen to the other people. And I realized that human nature is the same. People want to be loved. People want to be heard. People want to give their opinion. And you learn more by asking people what they think about issues than just telling them what you think about the issues. One of the funny things that I realize online is sometimes I think I'm right on an issue, and I just throw it out there and I ask people, what do you make of this? And you have sometimes maybe 30 respond to some post on X, and they have different opinion. And I realize you don't really know. You get to learn by listening to people. You get to learn by hearing what the other people have to say.
Yeah, and I've been following your X for a few months now. And it doesn't seem like you're promoting any specific side. You seem to be criticizing both of them. So what is your political stance, and what are you trying to do in terms of, asking questions? Do you try to stay out of, political affiliations, or how do you manage this as, as a correspondent?
No, so a lot of people, one of the reasons why I lost so many followers, right, was because when then candidate Trump was being, I believe, persecuted. Like, a lot of those cases maybe may never have been filed if he wasn't running for president, including the case that he lost yesterday. He was asked to pay $83 million yesterday for defaming Eugene Carroll for a case that she filed decades after it happened. And I don't want to dismiss anyone bringing up allegation of being assaulted by anyone. You don't know. You were not there. You may be wrong. But, usually when you wait for 4 decades to bring up an accusation, people will ask questions. Why did it take so long? You were not a kid. You were maybe in your 50s. And so I realized that people who were following me, they thought I was right wing because I was saying, no, it wasn't right, trying to jail President Trump, then former President Trump, trying to prevent him from running for office and bringing all these cases. And so when he became president, now the buck stops, with him. And so when he does the same thing to other people and I criticize them, people are like, oh my God, the sky is falling. How can you do that? You've sold out. You're not a left wing person. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that, yes, you're doing journalism, but how long do we really have to live on earth? Maybe 80 years, 90, 100, which is very short for a planet that has been in existence for billions of years and that will remain long after we die. And I realized that we don't really understand the concept of death, that we are going to die. Because once you understand that you're going to die, you become more empathetic. You have more empathy towards people. You begin to realize that just being alive today is a miracle. Because 5 minutes without breathing, you're dead and then you're gone forever. And I feel like people, when you understand that, you become kind toward yourself first and you become kind towards people. And so you don't see people as left and right and as immigrant, as local, as the criminals. They are blacks, they are white, they are Asian, they are Middle East folks. And you begin to realize that people are people. Human nature is the same. If you're hungry, you want food to eat. If you're thirsty, you want drink water. And I realized that in the best way is to actually be in the middle, because the best solution is not left wing or right wing. It's always somewhere in the middle. You don't want to open the borders, right, to have millions of people flooding in every day. It doesn't make sense. But also, you don't want to become so demonic that you now arrest people who maybe have not done anything. Maybe they are going through the process and you cancel or people who write an opinion. I remember this lady from Turkey who wrote an opinion and her green card was canceled. And I'm like, okay, where about the First Amendment? And so I'm just trying to do my job. I want to see people as people. I don't want to see people as black and white and brown and Asian. I understand that human nature is the same. People do the same things. People are capable of great deeds, but they're also capable of really bad, horrible things. And once you understand that, you become fair to all people. You don't judge people based on where they were born. You don't judge them based on what they sound like, which God they pray to. You see them as human beings. And I'm not for crime, because when I say to people like, okay, so you want criminals to flood the US? I'm like, no, I don't encourage anyone to go to a store and take what doesn't belong to them, shoplift. I don't encourage anyone to assault anyone. I want to be safe. I want to live in a place where you can be safe, where your family can be safe. And I also want immigrants who come to this country, to be a law-abiding citizen. I don't want to become that person who judges people based on what they look like, where they worship, who they love, or where they come from. And by doing that, uh, I take a lot of hate from the left and the right. Every day I had to block my ex account, my inbox. So for anyone to send me an inbox, I have to follow them because every day I used to receive hundreds of messages, including people wishing me to die and, death and stuff like that, insulting my mom. And I realized, oh my God, I used to hear about death threat. I didn't know it could actually happen to me. But I realized once you reach hundreds of millions of people online, you become a target. I actually took a seat back for since the presidential election took hold. I've not been posting videos and audios and all the stuff that I used to do before because I realized, I needed to take a seat back. I needed to recover from doing this 24/7 for almost 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, so tell me about your upcoming website for your project, what it is, and I'll also leave the link to the website in the
Yeah,
video.
so anyone can go to dailyletter.tv. And so we are just trying to focus on Washington, the White House, politics, anything happening here in Washington has, and then as it relates to the international community, Africa, US, Africa relations, and politics, business, everything happens in Washington. There's more money created here than anywhere else in the world. And even though 96 or 97% of the money here is digital currency, people don't have those bills and coins. But all the money is created here. Congress create money here, and the Treasury distribute money from here. The contracts go from here. This is the most powerful place in the world. And many decisions, including how to bomb Iran, anything happening miles and miles away, begins here. And so I won't focus on that. I won't focus on politics and the US, the economy, and then relationship between the US and Africa. And it's just the day-to-day, happenings here in Washington, D.C. To me, the fun part was actually the platform, using all those building an infrastructure. I believe that to me the biggest thing in the US is technology and having able to give people audio and videos, and I'm just doing it in a different way, making it easy for people to access news and access it with audio, video, and stuff that only the big players were doing before. People who invest like hundreds of millions of dollars, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal. I was able to build something that it's almost as good, if not better, than what they are currently offering.
Interesting. And since you have this very unique perspective as an immigrant, but also as a person who follows, the developments in Washington D.C. very closely for a long period of time, where do you think the U.S. is heading in terms of the division that we have and then political future? Because unfortunately, I can see, how the division is growing, and just wanted to hear your perspective on the potential future of this country.
So I believe that it's going to take maybe 15 to 20 years for the divide to start closing again. President Trump will not be able to do it, and the person who comes after him may not be able to do it as well. It's growing every day. The left doesn't listen to the right doesn't listen to the left. And influencers and journalists, you have to pick a side. And the reason I'm being attacked by all sides, and the reason I was demonetized by those platforms, and the reason I'm broke, I don't have money now, is because I refuse to pick a side. So you need money to do journalism, and to make money, you need an audience. And to have an audience, you need to pick a side, because that's how you generate quick money. You need your side to be there and share your content and be with you. And when you don't do that, you end up in the middle. And people in the middle, they're quiet, they don't, they're not driven by rage and, strong emotions that drive traffic. And so I'm seeing online that you have to pick a side to be successful online. As a result of that, journalism is being practiced in a different way now. where you have to please your audience rather than tell them the truth. And as a result, the gap or the divide between the left and the right, it's expanding every day, driven by the audience and driven by money. And so sometimes I'm asking myself, am I doing the right thing? Because for you to remain relevant, you need to have a strong audience. But if you write something, if most people who follow you like President Trump, and he imposes tariffs, and those tariffs are not maybe in the best interest of the US right now in the short term, and people may not be patient to wait for 10, 20 years for factories to be built in the US, and you say something against those tariffs, you lose maybe 5,000 followers. The next day you lose another 5,000 followers. So you lose followers, you lose influence, you lose money. And so most people don't want to do what I do. And so they pick a side, and it's a fight every day. And that fight now breed the division, breed, the expansion. And so President Trump will not do it. The person who comes after him may not be able to do it. So I'm giving it maybe 15 to 20 years, maybe two or three presidents before we can have there's always going to be a divide, but before we can have a situation where people can actually have a conversation, because right now there's no conversation, it's just insult and blame game, and why didn't you release the Epstein files, and you should have released them, but why didn't you release, if my name were there, why didn't you, and then on and on and on. No one is talking about the victims. What happened to those people? Are they being compensated? What about the trauma? Are we having is the same thing happening right now elsewhere? Maybe we are not even paying attention. And so we are not having those conversations because it's blame game. Everyone goes back to their echo chamber. And so it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, and as you said, social media is a big part of it because it kind of expands the human flaws. We all want drama, we want excitement, rage, all those things, and when you can access that on your phone, then the division makes you money. So, and as you said, it will take probably at least 3 to 4 presidential cycles to address that. How would that be possible if social media is still there? We have new technology, we have AI, and the environment will probably not change. So how would those new leaders bridge this divide, especially when you have adversaries who try to stir this up? How do you see this being solved?
Yeah, so human nature is the same, and everything it's like a cycle, right? One of my first phones was a BlackBerry phone, and I was proud of it. I could not believe that the BlackBerry was going to die in court. And then the BlackBerry has died now because they are doing something else. They're no more doing the BlackBerry itself. And then we also had Nokia, and Nokia was a great phone there. They were a great company, but they made mistakes and they lost. And then we had Facebook. I was on Facebook every day. I've not been on Facebook for 3 or 4 years now, and need to go back. Maybe I will reactivate my account. But I couldn't believe that I could spend a day without being on Facebook. I've not been there for like 3 years. And so everything has a cycle. And then we had Google. And it was like Google was going to be the last thing because you can search for anything. And then now we have AI. You can actually talk to AI. AI can help you code and build things, build systems, build infrastructure that people can use. And I'm like, oh my God, when was I on Google last? I can't remember. I'm no more using Google. I'm just building system, and I'm using all the tools that we don't have to build things that people can use. And maybe in the next 20, 30, 40 years, maybe in the next 4 decades, we have something else. So we don't know what will happen between now and the next 20 years, the next 15 years, but there are going to be great changes. And I believe that at some point, people will realize that if we keep going this way, we are going to self-destruct. People can't have a simple conversation anymore. You can't have a beer with someone who's on the other side. I have a lot of people who like President Trump, and I have a lot of people who are Democrats. And often, online they don't talk to each other. And so I believe that at some point there's a cycle. People will go back to realize that we can't keep going this way. We are going to destroy ourselves, and we need to have some compromise, and we start having conversation, debate, and listening to the other side. And I believe that when we get there, it's going to be something. It's going to be possible, but it's going to take time, maybe 2 or 3 presidential cycles, as you said. But we are going to get there. I'm optimistic.
All right. And before we finish the episode, we have a few minutes left. Do you have a final message for the listeners, and maybe in particular to young people, maybe something that you want to share with them?
Yeah, so the only thing I want them to pay attention to is AI. So around was in the 1990s, 2000 or so, we had Google, when all these guys came on board. I believe that AI is going to completely change the way we do things, the way we build systems, the way we build infrastructure, the way we communicate, the way we learn, the way we interact with people. And I believe that they should pay attention to that, not just people in the US, because right now the AI market is being dominated by people in the West, and there's nothing in Africa, for instance. All those data centers, they're just like 0.1%. And so it means that what we dominate the next 20 or 30 or 40 years is being shaped right now. And there is nothing in that part of the world. They are going to be using, they are going to be consuming. They are not going to have the data center to determine their own future. So I will say that people should pay attention to AI, and they should be optimistic. They should follow people like me who are like in the middle, not trying to be right wing or left wing. And I believe they should be, I just say they should be compassionate. They should have a heart, try to see people as human beings, not what they look like, where they come from, where they worship. In the end, those things do not actually matter. And I want them to focus on the main things. Enjoy their experience on earth, understand that every minute is a privilege, and be happy with their lives.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing all this today. Good luck with your new website, sir, and appreciate you coming to the show today.
Thank you for having me.